shoe is better to hoop in, the Nike KD14 or the Adidas Harden Volume 6? Today we're putting the most recent signature shoes from Kevin Durant and James Harden's signature shoe lines head to head to see how they compare. But really quick, if this is your first time checking us out, feel free to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're watching and give this video a like. We would greatly appreciate that. So starting off with the box and the price, the KD14s get a simple black box with this player logo kind of blown up on top. Not really much to speak of there. And for the Harden 6s, you get the HV.VI on the front of that box, signifying the Harden Volume 6, along with some faint splotch designs kind of built in there as well. As for pricing, the KD14s are going to retail for $150, which is pretty much right in the middle of the edge, or I guess of the pack for signature shoes, maybe a little bit on the higher end. The Harden 6s go for a little bit less at $140 even after jumping up $10 from the Harden 5s. So these wouldn't be considered two of the cheaper shoe lines, but still not a bad price. So taking a quick look at the appearance for these models and starting off with the colorways, today we're checking out the Nike KD14 Ant Pearl versus the Harden Volume 6 Mist Aqua. So looking at the KD14s first, this Ant Pearl colorway just dropped and it is so fire. These look so nice. KD has been doing that Ant Pearl color scheme on his shoes for a while now, and I just love the concept. I actually have the KD6 Ant Pearls right over here over my shoulder. But looking at the actual model itself, I do think Nike did a better job, at least put a little bit more effort into this year's model compared to the KD13s. They did bring the strap back, which, I really do like on basketball shoes, so that was nice for me. And then the wavy pattern on the upper is pretty clean, especially on the back of the shoe, kind of around the heel. And then I do like that Nike air bubble that they tossed onto the midsole. It's just overall a nice design and a clear upgrade from last year's model as far as the appearance, in my opinion. But now switching it over to the Harden Volume 6, you're going to get a little patch at the bottom of the lacing setup, a little Harden patch at the bottom of the lacing setup. Then you also have a blue lace right above that that's going to run behind, kind of underneath the pull tab on the back of the shoe. And then Adidas did keep those Achilles pillows inside of Harden's line this year. Those like Achilles pads kind of around the sock liner, after having those really thick pads in there on the Harden 5s as well. Honestly, they might be even bigger on this year's model, or maybe just a little bit more noticeable, but they aren't uncomfortable or anything like that. And there are going to be some waves built into the midsole that I do like a lot more than the flattened out midsole that they gave the Harden 5s. I did think it made that design look, a little bit too bulky. The Harden 6 still isn't going to be my favorite look, but they do look better than the 5s in my opinion. But now let's go ahead and move on to see how each of these shoes hold up on the court. So now looking at the materials and the support, the KD14 added a strap back like I just said, and that's going to be a really nice additional piece. And then Nike also uses a multi-layer mesh upper with some added thickness in certain areas to kind of help keep your foot in place. So this gives you a really controlled feel while you're playing in this design. And you can tell that Nike didn't cut the cost with these shoes as far as the materials that they put into them. And the support is going to be really solid. You add that strap for some additional lockdown, of course. And then the lateral containment is going to be great. The upper is pretty sturdy, so you don't have to worry about your foot kind of sliding around trying to get outside of the model. And with this being built up a little bit higher, kind of turning into more of a mid-top design, your ankle does feel extra secure within that heel counter. And then switching it over to the Harden Volume 6, the upper is a lot different from the 5s, which had more of like a plastic casing feel to them. These are going to be made out of some softer textiles, which does make it easier to scuff. I found that out on the first day that I played in these, just got a big mark right up the middle of them, but it's not going to be a suede material, but it does feel kind of close to it on those overlays. And Adidas did keep those Achilles pads in his shoe line, just like they had on the 5s, and they are pretty big and they do extend out from the shoe a good amount, but it isn't like uncomfortable like I was kind of worried it might be whenever I was looking at them at first. But the support is where Harden's line fixed a lot of problems. I couldn't keep my foot in the shoe at all on the Harden 5s. I was just constantly slipping out, but I haven't had that same problem on this year's model. The laces actually feed through a little gray overlay on the upper that kind of helps tighten your foot into the design. I think that helps a lot on this shoe. And then you're also going to have some blue pieces that kind of come up from the midsole that may help with the lateral containment a little bit. So that was an area that needed improvement, and it did get it. But the knock on Harden's line for the past few years has been that they range on the heavier side. The Harden 6 is going to weigh 512 grams for a size 10.5, which isn't terrible, but it's definitely on a little bit of the heavier side. The KD14s are going to be lower at 474 grams for the same size 10.5, but these are going to be a little bit heavier, this Ant Pearl colorway, than the Lime Glow that I was reviewing, a few months back. I don't know, for whatever reason, this model just ended up being heavier. So neither shoe, I guess, would be considered light, but you can feel that the Hardens are a little bit heavier just while you're playing these two models. All right, so for the last half of this review, I'll hit on more of like the materials and the performance side for both of these shoes. So starting off with the cushioning in the KD14s, Nike uses a full-length Air Zoom strobel unit stitched directly into the upper, and that's meant to keep these shoes soft yet responsive. And, you know, the KD14 feels great to play in. The insole feels really soft, and it won't take a lot of time to break these in, if any, so that part is nice. And then the Cushlon foam midsole is just going to add to somewhat of an already soft feel, just overall, so I do like this shoe a lot. And then now moving on to the Harden Volume 6. If you want to talk about a shoe line that had nowhere to go but up for like the comfort, I mean, the Harden Volume 5s from last year, that shoe just, it was not great. And the cushioning was part of the problem. That was part of the reason why. But, you know, the Harden 6 is not going to blow you away with a super soft feel, but the boost cushioning does feel a lot better in this year's model than last year's Harden 5. And they did test out the future natural process in that Harden 5 design, and they missed pretty big in my opinion. But the Harden 6 does definitely feel better, so I am happy about that. It's still going to be a little bit more stiff than the KD14s, but still not by a ton. Finishing off with traction, Nike kept the same general concept from the KD13s on this year's model with those oval patterns that you'll see on the bottom there, and that's going to handle most of your side-to-side or like your lateral coverage, and then the rest of the design kind of manages the front to the back movements, and this is just a really good shoe for traction. They do a really good job of gripping the floor, and I haven't had any like issues slipping with these so far. But now looking at the Harden Volume 6, just to jump back to the 5s one last time, that shoe was like playing basketball on ice for me. Like, it was impossible for me to get any grip. They were just an absolute dust collector. And the 6s, they did improve here. Honestly, I mean, they couldn't have gotten much worse. I think it did help that Adidas went with more of a herringbone setup, which did help these take a step forward. I wouldn't really call them sticky, but, you know, they do grip the floor nice, or good on nicer courts. They're decent on dustier courts. And that's kind of what I end up having to film, you know, most of my shoes on. But, you know, to finish off with sizing, the KD14 is pretty much a perfect true to size fit. The length is good, maybe a little bit narrow on the width, but the Harden 6, they are definitely going to run a little bit big. I have more room than I'd like, so, you know, more so in the toes, so I would recommend going a half size down. So for the final ratings and starting off with the appearance, the Harden 6 does look better than the Harden 5s, but I still do like the overall design for the KD14s better, so I'm going to start off going that way. As for cushioning, I mean, definitely Harden's line did improve, but the KD14 is going to offer a softer feel, so I'm going to stick with Durant's line here. But the materials are going to be pretty comparable. The KD14 did add the strap, but the Harden's line, I mean, you're going to have those, you know, Achilles pads in the sock liner. Neither model is going to feel cheap, so I'm just going to keep that section as a tie. And the support is actually pretty good on both of these models. I still am going to give a slight edge to the KD14 though. They do offer a slightly better feel for me personally. But to finish off with traction, I mean, the KD14 is going to take that section too. Just overall, they grip the floor better, even with the Harden 6, making some improvements from the Harden 5. So altogether, I am going to go with the KD14 as the better shoe to hoop in. There just really isn't a weakness on this design, maybe other than them being a little bit on the heavier side, just above average for weight, but I wouldn't really say it's noticeable though. The Harden 6 is a clear upgrade from the 5s in my opinion, but you know, it just simply isn't at the same level as the KD14s, at least not yet. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. If you want to buy the Nike KD14, just click the link on screen, or we have links for both shoes down below or in our bio, so feel free to check those out. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoewear. Peace.